Hey, it's Andrew here, and welcome to the E-commerce Fuel podcast, the show dedicated to helping 7 and 8-figure e-commerce business and brand owners build incredible businesses and amazing lives. And today on the show, very excited, have a friend, an E-commerce Fuel community member, our women's ambassador for new female founders, and that's Elizabeth Mercer, and she has built up the brand Sleekform.com, which is a very cool brand of ergonomic furniture, tables, and kind of things for the workspace. Really interesting story. And so we're going to be diving into that brand. We're going to be diving into her experience hiring a remote team. She has a lot of experience hiring for remote positions, specifically being able to suss out and vet very specific characteristics that make for great remote team members. We're going to be diving into Sleekform, the business, living in multiple places, and a bunch of other fun stuff. So excited to dive into this. So Elizabeth, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, very rare that I have a fellow Tucsonian, or at least like kind of quasi part-time Tucsonian, as we'll get into down the road. But sleek form. So I probably did a terrible job of covering what sleek form is. Can you tell people, like in your own words, what do you make there?
Yeah, so we make functional, beautiful, affordable, ergonomic furniture. You can put in your office space, you can use all the time or just sometimes when you need to have a pop up.
Okay. And is this something that like came out of a need that you had in your own life, or was it complete? Like I think about back to when I've picked products and almost mercenary mode, just completely data driven. Where did it fall in that spectrum?
Yeah, so I would say like in the beginning, it was very data driven. My like flagship product is a kneeling chair, and that came out of a pure necessity because prior to Sleekform, I had nomaded with my husband for like 3.5 years and worked in a bunch of crappy co-working space stools and just like bad chairs. And then when we came back to the States, I wanted to set up a home office, but everything on the market is so expensive. And so I was like, okay, we can sell affordable, good quality chairs that are good for your back, good for your posture, good for your entire well-being has wonderful attributes that carry through your work and your personal life and if you don't have a aching back at the end of the day. So that's kind of where it started. So it definitely was data driven in which ones I started with. And then about a year into it, I cut everything that didn't feel like the brand and was a data driven decision in addition to the catalog and honed it down. And that's kind of the catalog that you see today is very mission based and very brand based, not just kind of throwing things in there to sell them.
Okay. So you started going more with like, hey, this is something I actually care about. I think it's quality, less.
Totally.
Okay. Because I feel like there's a lot of people in business that kind of have this moment where they can either say, hey, I'm going to start doing this in a way that I get excited about and that I think is really that taps into some part of the passion of what they're interested in. Was that a hard jump for you? Because I've talked to like I've had moments like that in my career. I know other people have. And was that a hard jump to make? Were you worried that like, hey, I'm going to kill the business because I'm kind of going with what I'm interested in more than just raw numbers and like data, research?
Yeah, there's definitely that fear. But I was in a really fortunate spot where I could step back and be like, what do I want here? I was I was in the process of leaving my previous job and taking this full time, and this was a back burner situation. This was something that I had someone else running, and I was going to take it full time, and I was like, I'm just not jazzed about these products that we're selling.
Yeah.
These are just not super fun, and if I fail, then I fail, and I've learned some things. But yeah, I just like didn't believe in what were some. We're selling like heat lamps for your plants. Not like I love my plants, but I'm more of a cactus person that really kind of waters it once a month, and then it just gives it a lot of sun and it does its thing. I don't need to do a whole lot of other things. So yeah, going into the obsession with office stuff. I was always the kid in school that like loved buying pens and paper and stationery and getting my
Yeah.
binders all set up. So going into like the home office phase is a little bit similar, but for adults.
So you're able to totally geek out on this.
Totally.
Have you found how much more enjoyable has the business been to run since you made that kind of deep dive into just focusing on the product line you loved?
Oh, probably 3 or 4 times because then I get to work with chiropractors. I get to talk to customers more that actually use one product, and we can actually market that, and I can use that information, that data. And that's what really, fires me up, is hearing from people, wow, this chair is incredibly helpful for my back, and it's really changed the way that I can be productive at work, and I'm happier at the end of the day because my back doesn't hurt and I don't feel like I need to go lay down. And those little things are just what keeps me going. And it's so fun to listen to, hear customers, and then also talk to. Recently, we've gotten into more partnerships with chiropractors and acupuncturists, and listening to their perspective of what the chair can do for you has been really fascinating and really fun to like geek out on the scientific medical side of it too.
Very cool. I'm going to take a very hard to write rabbit trail here, but you mentioned vagabonding for 3.5 years with your husband.
Yep.
What I will spare you the, hey, what was your favorite place questions that you get every time when you tell people this. But I'm curious, uh, what were your thoughts on working? Because I believe you were working during this time, right? You're building a business, you were working. How were you able to work? How did you find working and being productive on the road? Because in my experience, like it's always people that like say that they're constantly in motion while working. I've never been able to get that. I need to either like be traveling and be in motion, or be hunkered down somewhere for like weeks, if not a month at a time, to get anything done. Because well, I'll let you share experience as opposed to talking. But how did you blend those two? Were you able to blend those two?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we did move all the time. So we started in the Philippines in like 2015, and this was just an idea to go travel. And like, my husband read the 4 Hour Work Week and listened to Tropical MBA, and then got the bug. And I was like, yeah, this is a cool idea. I'm super stoked on this. Let's do this. And so in the beginning, we did move every week or so. I guess in the very beginning, we moved every like 3 days. That is not sustainable. That's awful. That's even if you're just traveling. If you think about
Yeah.
like your 2 or 3 week long vacations that you go on, um, it's just hard to move every 3 days. You can't really get immersed in the culture. You can't really understand where you've been and understand what the culture is all about. So we transitioned from that, and probably about 3 months into it, we started doing what we called slow travel, where we did set up for like a month or a month and a half in one spot. So you could have some weekends where you were down and just kind of relaxing and enjoying, some weekends where you're out adventuring, some weekends where if the business was on fire and you needed to work, then you could. So in those days, we were working 60 or 80-hour weeks because we also had no friends, right? Like, there's zero distractions because you don't know anybody. And so that's all you have to do. I remember coming back to the US after doing that. I was like, wow, how do you get anything done when you're surrounded? Like, there's just so many things that can pull your time, and it's so
Uh-huh.
easy. Like, we didn't make friends with people at the co-working spaces. We just kind of worked, and we were our own best friends. And that you can do that for a while. That does also wear on you, and to not have external friendships or external things to do versus just working with your spouse, living with your spouse, and playing with your spouse. So it's all different.
I always love asking people before I hop on, like, what are you really excited about right now? And you had mentioned packaging and branding, and how you're like rethinking that for Sleekform. Talk a little bit about that, like why, maybe what you're doing, and then specifically why you're spending so much time invested in that.
Yeah. So this is my favorite thing right now because maybe, let's see, probably did it about a year ago for the first product. I felt that we were putting out this beautiful, like, you can just make beautiful things online really easily and really cheaply. Like,
Hmm.
between our Shopify store, our Instagram, our TikTok, between all of those things, we look like a much bigger brand than we actually are. And so I think our customers had that mindset already. And then we just kept getting these reviews saying, your assembly manual is terrible. I don't know how to put together this chair. And we are a furniture brand, so you do have to put something together, which is always the most dreaded task of buying anything online. And then you have to put it together, and it'd be great if it just arrived completely set up. And I agree, you can't afford shipping. So diving into that, my head marketer actually had the idea of, she's like, I really just think that they're going into it with the wrong headspace. I think that if we took a look at this, we can really change that perspective from the very beginning. And so we found a like a box packager out of Moldova, and we sent him a chair, he redid everything, and pretty much overnight those reviews that were angry and frustrated like just disappeared. People just didn't send them in anymore. And so it was just this crazy, by shifting their headspace and by shifting where they were at mentally going into a dreaded task. And we didn't touch the manual because we had already reworked that manual 100 times, and you can never please everybody. Some people want more pictures, some people want more text, some people want the video, never want to even read. You just can't please everyone. So you can try to do everything, but changing the packaging and giving them like a nice unboxing, our reviews, all of a sudden we stopped getting the 1-star reviews. If there was an issue, then they would email us because they felt like they had a better experience. They would email us. Then we had the opportunity to actually engage with the customer, talk to them, turn it around, allow our customer service to kind of shine through. And then on the thing that I didn't expect to happen was the amount of UGC that was created from that. And people love to post this unboxing experience now. And people will post their, time-lapsed assembly of the chair. And then we get tagged on Instagram or TikTok, and then we get to keep that content and use it for reviews or putting it in some emails and just using it in evergreen ways. And people love to see the product in action versus like your product images that you've made so beautiful.
And this was all from just redesigning your box? Was it
Mhm.
what exactly did you do? Did you I'm sure you made like the outside prettier, more branded, but specifically, what were all the changes you made?
Yeah, honestly, the outside, I don't find the need to make the outside look too great. I think that if you make your outside look great, then there's potential for higher porch pirating. So I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
that's really beneficial. It's still a very basic brown cardboard box. We just have our logo pretty big on it. What we actually did on the inside was remove the plastic and make the pieces fit in there perfectly. So we cut and had various cardboard die cutouts for the products. We put all of our hardware in a nice box that said hardware and then labeled them really well on the inside and just kind of removed when you open something and you have to assemble it. My theory is that if you open it and it looks neat and organized,
Mm-hmm.
you just feel better about diving into it than if you open it and it's just like a mashup of all these parts and things,
100%.
and you just have a better beginning experience because we're already going in with people about to get frustrated because they're thinking they're going to have to assemble IKEA furniture. So if you can make that a little bit better, then I feel like you're off to the races.
And where did you find the designer? Like, was it an Upwork thing? How
Yep.
do you find someone like this?
Yeah, it was an Upwork thing, and I think we interviewed or talked to, like, 3 different people, um, and between myself, my marketer, who's also my CS person, and she talks to the customers and has just understands exactly where they're coming from, and my logistics guy, we can just put everything in there, and we communicated with him and had various calls, and he was the best one for the job. And it was like a project based instead of hourly based. I like that setup too because I was,
Yeah.
that's if you're good and you can get it done in an hour, I don't care what you charge. Like, I would rather have it done and it be fast and good.
So you sent him the product. He
Mhm.
got it. He measured everything, looked at everything, coordinated with, whatever box supplier there is, and then sent you iterations of the box until you got to the point where it was exactly how you wanted it.
Yes, and there were probably like the first iteration he did, we sent to our supplier and they had trouble with it. And so we got that feedback from that supplier, sent him that information, and he executed it again. We originally sent him just a CAD file with all the specifics of screws and, length, width, height, diameter, all that stuff. And then he needed the actual product because then he made various mock-ups and would go to his local print shop and get these cardboard cutouts completed.
Got it. That is amazing. Just the framing, the psychological framing that changes people's mindset. Shouldn't be surprising, but it is. You mentioned the outside branding. Did you do anything in terms of graphically on the inside? Like, I always find that when I open up a package and it's got really well done graphics or imagery or taglines or just, aesthetics from opening
Mhm.
it as well is always helps me. I don't know. It feels like a more premium product. Did you invest in any of the aesthetics on the inside?
Yeah, so I can't remember who for like a year leading up to this, I just kind of saved various product inserts that I thought were
Yeah.
very impressive. And so I just had this library of product inserts. And so I pulled that library out. I found like we needed, I thought it would be better to have thicker paper. And I thought it would be better if it was a certain size, and if it could be a postcard versus a sheet of paper that was black and white. I wanted it to be color. So we invested in what you actually touch versus
Hmm.
we invested in the things that I thought customers would find value in versus just throwing in like a sticker or a pen like that felt cheap. I invested in, you're going to read those assembly manuals. You're going to undo I actually have so we use like something like this for our packaging. And that feels way better than and it has like this cute little
Oh, cool.
like envelope thing. Just felt better, and it's a thicker ply paper. It just felt better in my hands than you know a sheet of paper that is black and white printed with IKEA instructions on it.
Yeah. What's some of the packaging you've been most impressed by? Like, I think about,
Mhm.
I know most people will be familiar with this and maybe been hit with too many of their ads, but Mudwater, when I got the first package, I opened it up and the packaging is really good. I think their branding and packaging is exceptionally well done. But what really stood out to me was they had this little book, like you said, heavy paper, full color, really well branded. And it was, I don't know, maybe 18 or 20 pages, but it talked about the product, but it also talked even more about, I don't actually, they didn't mention the product until maybe like page 10 or 11, but it talked about like just the importance of sleep. It talked about the ingredients and the quality. It talked about lifestyle and all these things. And it's the only time I can remember getting something from a product that I bought, sitting down on a couch, popping a beverage and reading it for like 20 minutes. And I was like, that is so valuable from getting headspace and getting just getting your customer bought into what you're doing. And at like 20 minutes, the amount that us as marketers would pay for 20 minutes of our customers' time is we would pay a ton. Anyway, it
100%.
really, yeah, it impressed me how well a good insert, especially long form on brand could be. Anyway, so all that to say, what were some of the inserts that you saw that inspired what you did at Sleekform?
Yeah, so I need to get Mudwater now that like I'm excited about that. I need to get some and take a look because it is fascinating how you can create something like that. The one so I'm always impressed with Glossier because they're a makeup company and they send you the makeup in these pink bubble mailers and they have their logo on it and they're durable. So then everybody continues to use them, especially when they're traveling, and
Mm,
everybody takes photos while they're traveling. So if you know what that is and you see it in all these influencers or just Joe Schmo's Instagram posts when they're traveling, it also clicks because you've purchased from them before. And it looks different. It's hot pink or like hot pink but see-through. That one was really impressive. I buy skincare from the skincare brand called May Lindstrom Skincare, and 10 out of 10 packaging. It arrives like you almost don't want to use the product because it looks so beautiful in its packaging. It's like suctioned. It has all these like paper crinkly strings. I can't remember what those are called. And then everything is just like perfectly placed in it. Comes with a handwritten thank you card. That one always blows me away. But the one that I used, I think the most input from is have you heard of, gosh, I'm going to butcher the name, Prusa 3D printers?
no, Prusa 3D printers.
Yeah, Prusa, I think is how it's spelled. But these are 3D printers that can 3D print another printer. So it comes,
What?
yeah, they're insane. And so my husband got a 3D printer, was really jazzed about it. He's an engineer and geeks out on that kind of stuff. And so he was like, I want to get a 3D printer that can print another 3D printer. And this company sells them, but they come like unassembled and you have to put them together. And their assembly manual was similar to what you were talking about with Mudwater, where it's like a booklet. It's huge and like it's a doozy. You know you're in for it. And on one of the very first pages, they send you all these parts, and they also send you a bag of hair bows that are special from, can't remember what country in Europe that they're out of, but I guess it's, you can't buy them in America. And so like, these are special hair bows. These are used for as you put together the 3D printer, because this is a doozy, and we'll tell you how hard or easy this task was. And so you can have like a hair bow allocation. And it's just this genius idea to make a difficult assembly more bearable and more fun. So you finish like the first one and it's like, congratulations, you can have one hair bow. And so there's what, 30 hair bows in a bag, and they divide them out based on the tasks. And we use
Are you
that.
saying hair bow, like a bow you would put in someone's hair?
No, hair bow, the gummies,
Oh, gummy
like the
bears.
little,
Okay.
yeah, gummy bears. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
and that's the brand. I like them the best. And so I was jazzed that they sent out hair bows from a place that wasn't the United States, because they did taste better. And they said I can't remember how we learned this fact, but they said their number one customer email is that people eat the hair bows too fast and they need to send more.
I will
So
agree with you. I will
common
also agree with you on the gummy bear front. There was a period of my life where I considered myself a connoisseur of gummy bears, and the hair bows, yes, are way better. There's the other ones, the Alterosas or something. What's the other one's called?
Oh, I don't know
Um,
those.
Anyway, if you ever need a lighthearted moment that's probably not suitable to talk about on the podcast, go read the Amazon reviews about what the other brand does to people, and it's pretty entertaining. So,
Okay.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
those Amazon review rabbit holes. Those are so funny.
yeah, they're pretty entertaining. Okay, so that makes way more. Okay, eating gummy bears sounds way more fun than putting a hair bow in your hair,
Way
which
better.
yeah, it's
Yes.
way step. Okay,
Yes.
wow. So you're bribing people. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and
Okay,
so what we did is we timed how long it would take to put together our chair, and we said, grab a beverage of choice. We think it'll take 30 minutes, and like put on a playlist. Like we tailored it that way so that they're also in a better headspace, and that they know we know assembling a chair is can be frustrating at times, and we're doing our very best to make it as least frustrating as possible.
that's super cool. Any other thoughts on packaging? Like if someone's thinking about redoing their packaging right now, and not everyone's doing furniture, but there's not always that frustration. But final thoughts or recommendations you have for people thinking about making their packaging either better on a frustration basis or just a branding basis?
Yeah, I would just say go ahead and go for it. I would say the exterior of the box is not that important,
Hmm.
especially since the exterior is not that important. What's on the inside is actually what's important, and so focus on that. Focus on what customers actually touch versus trying to throw in a cheap pen because it costs 2 cents, and your supplier can pop it in for free. I wouldn't do that. I would just, if you can get a quality cool thing, do that versus the stuff everyone throws away.
Yeah. What was the cost on redesigning your packaging, both from maybe an upfront cost for the labor and the work and all that kind of stuff, but then also the variable cost for the new packaging you had to buy for every unit?
Yeah, so I'd say the variable cost was, I think at the end of the day, it was so negligible. It was like 7 cents a package, where
Wow.
it was just so negligible. And then for his work, it was about $1,500 for the project.
Okay. So safe to say one of the best ROI investments you've made in your business.
Yeah, hand over
Yeah.
hand for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Um, I'd love to talk about your team a little bit. You mentioned your head of customer service, I think your marketing person. You have You've built an amazing business with some great products. They're proprietary. They're really well branded and packaged. But you also have, as we'll talk about a little bit later, like you have the ability to be able to do a lot of really great things. Like I remember one time we were chatting. You just got back from skiing. You have a lot of freedom and ability to move around and travel. How do you think about running your business? Like, what does that look like from a team perspective, from a delegation perspective? Like what you do, what the key things you focus on versus have other people do. I'd love to dive into that a little bit because you seem like you've struck a really good balance between those.
Yeah, my ideology on this is that this business is to help me learn, help make me money and sustain things. Also to have other people be stretched in ways that they necessarily didn't think they could be, and really have a good work-life balance. If you wanna change, I make furniture. I'm not going to Mars. So if you wanna work really hard and really long hours, you don't come to work for me. And being really clear on that from the very beginning, I think has served me pretty well.
Uh-huh.
Um, I we're not the company that is we're the company that values off time, and I respect your off time, and I respect if if you wanna go travel and do the nomad thing, I've done it, and so I know some tips and tricks that I can show you along the way if you wanna expand in that way. If you wanna have more time off, the protected time with your family, I respect that. We're not saving lives, we're not going to the moon. There's no need for crazy amounts of stress. We can figure it out, and I'm very honest with that. And there are different types of people and different points of your life that is really appealing for that. And so I think being open and upfront with that from the very beginning has been helpful for getting the right people in the right positions.
So I'm guessing you pitch that both in the job description when you're interviewing people. That's sounds like you're leading with, "Hey, well, you can actually have a life and work here and do cool work, but also be able to enjoy your family, enjoy travel." That sounds like
Mhm.
a leading thing that you let people know up front.
Yeah, so putting it on the job posting, talking about it in the interview process, and really phrasing open-ended questions in the interview process to people are just going to tell you what they think you want to hear in the interview process.
Mhm.
So coming up with unique ways to phrase it where you can actually get down to the nitty-gritty of what propels somebody and what inspires them and what is important in their life right now, then you can really kind of get a good feel for that.
Yeah. What are some of your what are some of those questions? Like you have hired a lot of remote roles and done
Mhm.
gotten to the point where you can suss out, like I said at the top, things. Some of the things that I was looking at in some of your past posts at ECF and other things like finding people that are epic communicators, self starters. They're flexible around time zones. They have a lot of technical aptitude. Maybe those are some of the big ones. What are some of the big? Let's say you only had three questions that you could ask someone to determine if they'd be a good remote worker uh, and a good fit culturally for your team. What would those three questions be?
Um, I guess the first one would be what's your work setup? And I would also preface this with understanding as the business owner what you need in this role. Because I think there are two ways of thinking about it. You can either be the expert and be willing to get somebody potentially for less amount of money and have to teach them,
Hmm.
or you can, um, or you might not have time to be able to do that and all the things that are needed in order to invest in that person. And you might need somebody to come out the gate swinging. So, on the coming out of the gates, well, I guess you can figure it out both, but the question I would ask first is what's your setup? Like how do you this is a remote position, what's your remote work setup? And I'm looking for people who have an answer to that versus like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the coffee shop," or um, "My living room's great," or
Mm.
like, if you can tell me your work setup, if you can tell me that you have a roost, a trackpad, a keyboard, and your favorite noise canceling headphones, I know that you're gonna be off to the races. If you don't, then I'm worried that you might not be a great everyone's not a great fit for remote work, and you might need more in-person exposure and in-person leadership than what I'm able to give you over the computer. And understanding their work setup really shows you kind of how they're thinking about it. Um, I would ask like an open-ended question about how you communicate with somebody from afar, and if they have remote experience, they can pull from that, and you can really suss out if they are how they communicate, and do they wait for things to come to them? Do they take action? What level of communication they can give, and then you followed up with like, okay, well, how did you, if you gave that information to somebody or you moved the needle in that project, how did you communicate through that? Because my view on remote work is that if you think you're communicating enough, you're under communicating. If you believe you're over communicating, you're right on target. because you just don't know. You just don't know where people are at, and we don't have that in-person office experience. I guess I would also ask, how will you stay motivated when you're not in the office? Like, what does that look like, and how do you create your day around structuring around when you know that you're the most productive?
People are the greatest part of business, but they're also the hardest. Like, and to
Mhm.
lead people well, it just takes a lot of work and time and everything like that. So I kind of agree with you. Like, if you can do a lot with a very small, capable team, that's my preference. And also, it seems like a lot of times when you build, like when people talk about building teams, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we hired like 30 roles in the last 6 months." I'm like, how do you? It takes me like 4 months to hire one role and feel halfway good about it. I don't know how you can scale that quickly without things breaking.
You
Um,
don't There's
yeah.
just no way. I've done it in the past, and it's impossible. You There's no way you give, especially with a remote team, there's just no way you give enough onboarding experience and
Hmm.
like help. It's just, it's gonna break. And maybe that's fine. Maybe you're like, yeah, I just need bodies in places, and we'll figure it out as we go. And I think that's what a lot of startups do. And then you learn, but you're gonna end up losing people. You're gonna end up firing people. It does break. It does break every single time.
Yeah. What the three people you have on the team? What are those roles? Your two Canadian team members and then your U.S. team member.
Yeah, so one guy does a lot of my Amazon stuff, logistics and ops. One, and then I have like contractors. So I have like a bookkeeper who does a little bit of time. I have a financial guy that has a little bit of time. So I've supplemental things there. But the people that I employ and pay regularly are my logistics. He does Amazon and operations. I have a marketing and CS person, and she does the like my TikTok content, my social media content, all my emails, my website stuff. She kind of touches all of those things for us. And then I have another woman who does my kind of partnership outreach. And we started trying to do an affiliate program. That's really not panned out very well. So now we're doing partnerships and wholesale and retail. And she kind of heads all that stuff up.
Got it. You had mentioned a little earlier that you feel like you look like a much bigger brand, right? With your Shopify and your Instagram and TikTok and things like that. What is it? Is that just a function of the fact that you can, for a couple $100, buy a really nice Shopify theme and put it up? Or do you have a great photographer? Or do you have someone who's phenomenal on the social side? What, this is kind of going back maybe quite a while back in our conversation, but what is it that makes you feel like you're able to look much bigger than you are? What's your secret sauce for that?
I think it's probably all three of those, honestly. It's you can look beautiful online really easy and really fast with your website design. Your Instagram and your TikTok, your followings aren't going to be there right away, and so that takes more growth and more effort. But I have somebody on my team who's just so great at like thinking up really fun, cheeky. We have a lot of fun with our marketing campaigns, and she's just so perfect for that role. And she comes up with great taglines. She's a whiz in Canva. I mean, just you can put anything in Canva and it looks incredibly professional and awesome. So Canva is an incredible tool. Um, we we get back to you really fast on customer support. That's a very big priority, is being able to reply within a few hours. I think that adds to that as well, and that experience. And now our Instagram following is nothing crazy, but you look at it and you're like, okay, this is like a real brand. And I think nowadays people are going to they're very weary of the cheap knockoff products and buying online. And so they kind of like fact check you on Instagram, TikTok,
Mhm.
Google. Like they're like, are you a real brand, or am I just getting this weird knockoff thing and it's going to break the second I buy it? So I think having all of those also makes you look legit.
Yeah.
And
And,
that's easy to do.
anything I'm going to be, and I'm asking this as someone who throughout my whole life, I feel like especially online. Looking great aesthetically online has not been one of my strengths, like, or our brand strengths, because it just, um, not that we look awful, but I think there's a lot of room we have to improve aesthetically. You mentioned Canva. There's some cool tools coming out with graphic design right now that are making that easier. But but just from the aesthetic standpoint, anything else you would speak to that, like maybe your team member that handles it, because it sounds like she does a lot of the marketing
Mhm.
things. You mentioned she's great at Canva. What else is she really great at? If someone's thinking like, I want to up the game on my branding aesthetically, how it looks, it just looks sharper, more professional, larger. Larger is not a great word, but it looks just more polished. What
Mhm.
else does she do really well, or what skills does she have really well that someone listening could maybe want to look for in a team member that could help elevate their brand look?
She's a creative through and through. So she and I can have she's very good at having a conversation with me and distilling like the vibe and the aesthetics and what I
Hmm.
want to come across as and putting that into a mood board. And so she uses, gosh, she uses a product research or a product management tool that's very creative based. Um, and she uses it and then just downloads the PDF because I don't log into it. I was like, I can't can't keep all track of all of these project management tools. I use Monday. Can you just download the PDF and send it to me? So she creates these mood boards. It's on point. We can then build the brand from there. And so she's just really good at seeing what I'm speaking and putting that into visual. And then I can say, I like this, I don't like this. We can talk through that. And then we take those mood boards and send it off to our photographer, who we have an incredible photographer. And I don't know how we look so cool. Like she just like makes us look cool. Like how did you make like just like how did you make it look so cool and fancy and epic? And she just styles it beautifully. And that's just because my marketer does an incredible job creating a mood board. She just takes cool, dope, epic photos and you put that together and you look like $1 million. It's awesome.
So you're able to, okay, so somebody goes through a mood board. The to find your creative slash marketing person and your photographer, did you have to iterate a few times to find them, or were you lucky and got them out of the gates?
I got really lucky. I found my photographer because she wanted to redo her office setup. And a lot of people that I work with, this is how I found them. They wanted to test out the product. And and so she was like, I'll do a photo shoot for you if I can, have a chair and a table. I said, done, sold. Like I'm working with like crappy product photographers on Fiverr right now. Like your photos look beautiful. This is great. And you're in Austin, epic. So I met her for coffee. Again, she just like I felt so uncool at the coffee shop. She just like walks in this like black on black, just like oozing cool. And I was like, oh man, please take my photos. This is great. So she does a killer job. But I found her because she wanted to test the product out. And then my marketer is just a creative at heart. And I knew that hiring her, and she was my first hire. And that's why I was so eager to have her on the team, because I'm an operations system kind of person and we just had very different skill sets. I
Yeah.
felt like I could talk to her. I felt like we vibed really well. And this was in the very beginning of Sleekform 5 years ago when I didn't know what we were going to do. And I told her that from the get go. I said, I don't know where we're headed. I don't know what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do for the first 6 months. And let's test this out. And if you're on board for a very fast paced, changing dynamic landscape, then that's great. If you're not, then no harm, no foul. But I think we could do a lot of really great things together.
Very cool. I want to ask about, kind of shift conversation a little bit. You split your time between a couple different places. Um, Talk a little bit about that. Like, Austin is your home base, but then you also
Mhm.
spend time in Telluride and also in Tucson. Give a little sense, if you would, about like why, how does that look, and why did you choose the places that you did?
Yeah. So Austin is home base, and we've been in Austin since 2018. And again, we were nomads for 3.5 years, and we weren't ready to stop being nomads. And so we kind of came up with this crazy idea of what if we, and then the world shut down with COVID. So we are like, what if we were like like adult domestic nomads. Like, what does that look like?
I'm stealing that
And
term, by the way. That's a great one.
yeah, what does that lifestyle look like if we, because I remember traveling and there was a lot of debate on whether Bali was the best spot or I think Thailand. And I can't remember. It was one of the guys from Tropical MBA, and they said like Bali's for adults and Thailand's for backpackers, and it was a very good descriptor. So we kind of morph that into what can we do domestically when the world shut down and you can't really travel.
Hmm.
Where can we get to pretty easily? Where do we want to spend time? And what are three very different landscapes that we love to look at? I had the opportunity to go out to this epic hotel in Utah and fell in love with the desert. That's how the Tucson thing got started. Is we
Hmm.
fell in love with the desert landscape and what it provides, and then nowhere else has those saguaro cactuses that or cacti that Tucson does, and that's beautiful. Uh, but we looked everywhere for that kind of property. We looked everywhere from like up in Utah, Wyoming, all the way down to West Texas and the border of Mexico, and Tucson was our crown jewel. And then Colorado was just a very different environment. And again, the world was shut down, so we're like, we need an opportunity to explore all of these different things.
And what percentage of the time are you in? Do you have like a seasonal shift where you go between them? Is it just kind of like whenever you feel like it, or when the snow's good in Telluride, or when it's not
Yeah.
110 degrees in Tucson, or what's your rhythm between moving between them?
Yeah, so yeah, Austin's definitely the home base, and then Tucson comes when we really need an escape and when we need a good grounding moment. It's a tiny home on land, and you feel very very out there in the wilderness, and that's a great feeling to disconnect from kind of the city lifestyle that Austin is, and living downtown and having everything right at your fingertips. That's really great to just disconnect. And then Telluride, we spend probably about 5 months out of the year in Telluride. We spend like a few weeks here and there in the summer for various festivals and whatnot. And then in the winter, we go and we post up the whole winter and go skiing the whole winter. And it's actually, I used to think it was like this awesome ability to ski during the day and work later. That it's actually more difficult than it sounds, because skiing is a 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock situation, and that's prime working time, that's prime meeting time. So that's actually more difficult. But thankfully, Telluride is a beautiful place that everyone wants to come visit. So we get all that stuff going on the weekends, and yeah, I'll get to post up, and that's really really great because, like I said, when we were doing all of the travel throughout starting in Southeast Asia and throughout the world, we like to go for a month or a month and a half. And it's easier to pop in, pop out when you have your entire work set up already there and you don't need to pack. Like when we go to Telluride, I just get
Hmm.
on the plane. We don't need to bring anything. I bring my laptop and my, various work things, but my clothes are there, my ski gear, and it's totally different climates too. So you don't
Hmm.
need you don't need to swap things, and that makes it nice too.
What are some of the downsides, if any, that you've come across from having to live in different places or maintain different properties or any of the above?
Yeah, I'd say nothing's without its cons, right? Nowhere's perfect 365,
Hmm.
but even if you solve that problem, then you're not using the place as much as you would like to. It's so great and you love it so much, but you can't be there all the time. So I feel guilty about that, and I also that's also difficult to if you need any work done on the houses. You still have to maintain all the houses. So we have a
Yeah.
really good setup in Telluride. We're actually like a part of a condo situation, and that's just perfect because they can receive your packages, they can change your light bulbs, and you don't have to do all the snow removal. It's just and it's an incredible team out there. That's just the way to do it. And prior to a year ago, we were living in a condo in Austin, and that's also the same sort of setup. You just lock it and you go, and you don't have to
Hmm.
think about it or worry about it. With houses, it's a little bit different. So out in Tucson, it's a tiny house, and so we built everything out there, and it's all off grid. So we're responsible for everything. So things out there break, we have to spend a lot of time going out there and resetting everything up and making sure things work, making sure we have water, and is our generator broken, or did our solar panels do everything that they should be doing? So setting up the power grid and the power structure, the Wi-Fi structure out there, it's just those things just can break. And the same
Are you,
thing in Austin, things can break.
sorry to interrupt. Are you using Starlink out in Tucson?
Yeah. So at the beginning, at the beginning, we had it set up where um, we found somebody on Craigslist that was posting for a rental house, and we said, "You are in the only area in Tucson that can have fiber internet. We would like to pay for your internet, but in return, for your rental property, but in return, we want to put a dish on the top of your roof, and we want to beam it to our place because we're not in a place where we can have fiber internet." So before we got Starlink, that's what we did, and so we like my husband actually was on the roof of this rental house, and we were doing line of sight with lasers and stuff, and I was up there reassessing the dish and trying to get it up and running. And now we have the fiber and Starlink, and they operate on a backup system. So if
Got it.
one goes down, the other one pops in.
Got it. Has Starlink been pretty? Seems like I've heard good reviews from it. And I think it's not as new as it used to be. It's been out for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 6 months now at this point. But
Hmm.
generally good reviews on Starlink for people who are considering it.
Yeah, it's been great. And I actually have some friends who live on a sailboat, and they have Starlink, and it's just like a game changer for sure.
Elizabeth, this has been awesome. Thank you. We're going to do a quick lightning round here before we put a ball on this. But if you have not checked it out, sleekform.com is her website. A beautiful line of, as we've already talked about, ergonomic chairs, desks, all sorts of furniture for working and doing it comfortably and not totally thrown out your back before what needs to be. So check it out, sleekform.com. And favorite product, actually, we'll talk about, I'll ask you this in the lightning round, but um, let's dive into this. You know how it goes, just super fast, punchy answers. We got about half a dozen questions for you. First one is, how would you describe the e-commerce environment in 1 to 3 words right now?
This one's tough. I went back and forth trying to figure this out because you asked this to everybody on the most recent podcast. Um, I would say you just have to be really well rounded. You have to be able to fire. It's not like being able to throw money at anything anymore and it just be successful. You actually have to be good at all the different platforms. You have to be well rounded. And that's
Yeah.
true.
A favorite memory or a fond memory from your childhood?
My family has a great tradition where we have a family reunion every July 4th, and and I grew up doing it. My mother's parents had a house in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and they took all four of their kids there every summer starting in the 50s. And then my mother and her siblings carried the tradition on. So now when we go, it's like 80 or 100 strong
Oh,
every July 4th. And I grew up doing that, and that's some of my most fond family memories are built at we call it at the beach, and it's anywhere can be a beach, but to us that's the beach.
that sounds amazing. That's really cool. Favorite product that you sell and why you love it so much? And we'll link up to this in the show notes for people to find.
Yeah, for sure. So my favorite is what's called the Portland table. It's a folding table. It was awesome for COVID workstations and setups. It comes fully assembled. It's only 20 pounds. It can hold everything you want to put on it. It's great for a pop-up bar if you're hosting a dinner party. It's great for an extension on your table. It can be a desk setup. It's just I have three in my house because I just use them all the time. And now that we have quote unquote post COVID life, you can have people over and you're like, oh wait, I need that extra table space, and
Mhm.
it's the best product ever. It can go in your closet underneath your bed. It's great.
You were showing it to me before we hopped on. It looks super classy. It's like a classy, elegant version of a folding table that just
Yeah,
is like
it's
doesn't feel like a cheap, chintzy thing that you'd see at like a yard sale.
yeah, and it's like just
Yeah.
a nice fold up table that you don't have to put a tablecloth on to make look nice. You
Hmm.
just like pull it out, you're ready to go.
Hardest part of your business.
Learning all these changing dynamic marketing spheres. Like TikTok changes, Facebook's going up in flames. We don't know how to navigate any of that. Navigating all the different marketing challenges is very difficult right now.
What's working best for you right now and on the marketing front?
Uh Going back to the grassroots. So we thankfully have a bunch of good blog SEO heavy blog posts and that people really love. And I actually just pulled all my Facebook ads down 3 days ago, to try and just go back to the bare minimum and rethink it. And so, utilizing SMS, email, and the user generated content that we get a lot of times from being tagged on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then popping that into SMS, engaging with a customer. That's been really helpful.
Interesting. So you're still seeing a meaningful amount of traffic from organic blog posts coming from that
hmm
content you've done.
hmm So thankfully, yeah, because I remember making those 3 years ago and being like, "Man, we're putting a lot of effort into this, and this is not doing anything." And so thank God we did that because now there's a bunch of credit that comes from those.
Yeah, it takes a while to ramp up.
Mhm.
And then the question I always love asking everybody, how much money in the bank is enough? And I've changed this to be a two-part. You can answer it one of two ways. You can either be a cash amount in the bank, cash or stocks like liquid net worth, so a lump sum, or it can be like an annual income, one of the two versions. So for you, if you got more in the future, it'd be nice. But if this is all that you had, you'd be able to be good, happy, and content for life.
Yeah, the goalposts on that keep moving, huh? Um, this one is tough. I guess right now, I'd probably say 20 million. 20 million, I feel like can sustain lifestyle, generation, kids, colleges, all that. Anything on top of that's super gravy.
Yeah. How many hours a week do you work?
25 to 30.
What's your number one hobby and you can't say work?
My son.
Or something?
Yep.
And who's one of the most interesting people you've met through e-commerce fuel?
Assuming I can't say you or Annie, I would go with some people that I talked to most recently. I went to Sunil's shop out here in
Oh
Austin.
yeah.
He is
Uh-huh.
just like a wealth of knowledge, so humble, so generous, just one of the nicest people. Um, a new member actually, Sarah Valinsky. She and I really hit it off and swapping tips, tricks. We both live here in Austin and met at Sunil's factory for the first time. I'd spoken with her when she came aboard and was excited that she was going to that. Um, Alan's always awesome. He's here in Austin. He's always a friendly face and a safe space for me to go to. Out in San Diego, I loved getting to connect with Ori. So I have a ton. Everybody's so great. The community is awesome.
Nice. Elizabeth, has been super fun. So congrats on Sleekform. Congrats on building such a cool life, and it's just been amazing having you in the community. So thank you for everything you've done on the ECF front, and for coming on and talking all the about packaging and how you hire and just telling the whole story. So this was super fun and appreciate having you here in the community. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was a blast.